that the kind of evidence and information that we had that indicated that there was, in fact, other life in our galaxy, and that there were probably from 2 to 6. And he hands it to me like that. And I said, where did you get this? And he said, I got it from my sister Dorey. And I said, where'd Dorey get it? She said, from Mike. You know, her husband, Mike, is the chief air traffic controller at the Seattle airport.
Oh, the Jesuits run everything.
And he said that, and I said, well, where did Mike get it? He said, well, Mike's best friend is a commercial pilot that flies freight all around, up around the Northwest. And he took this photograph right out of the window of his plane.
Oh, wow.
And he brings the little camera back to the drugstore back at those times when you had to do it. It's way before you got, and get it developed. And he realized what he had, and he didn't want to get in trouble, the pilot.
Is that when he had to put in the liquid and everything? And
yeah, that was, well, you have to take him to the drugstore. At that time, the only place they ever did, you bring it to the drugstore or the pharmacy section, you give it to them, and then they would send it away to some lab, and then they would get developed, and you come back a week later or something, and they would give you the little. That's how you used to do the photos, right? And so that when he got it back and he realized what he had, he said, look, I don't want to get in any trouble here. You know, I don't want to lose my pilot's license. I'm not going to report this to anybody, but I'm going to take it to my best friend, Mike, because he's the head air traffic controller at the Seattle airport. So he takes it and gives it to Mike. And Mike takes it and looks at it and says, look, I'm not going to get in trouble by reporting this to anybody. And he takes it and gives it to his wife, Dorey. And he says, here, Dorey, take this and give it to your brother. He's a priest. And that's
He'll know what to do with it.
And that's how we got it. You know, and so he'd been sitting there with it in his desk all the time. So that was one of the reasons why he was so open to me, you know, doing all this stuff with this, because he'd sat there with this in his desk. I don't know how long he had it, but the bottom line is he was sure that it was true too. So we then, Father Davis and I went to the Washington Interreligious Staff Council and made a formal proposal to all 54 of the major office directors to set up a task force to get out ahead of this thing so that we could start figuring out the theological implications of all of this, and we could all start accommodating what's getting ready to happen here. And we proposed that Judy Stone, I remember, was the head of the discussion we were having, and she said, well, are there any other ideas? Anybody else have any other ideas? And they just never even put it for a vote. Never even blinked. You know, just wouldn't do it. And so it was sometime later that I ended up being contacted by Dr. John Mack, who was the head of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, and asked to become his attorney.
Yeah, quickly.
That was later.
I definitely want to talk about John Mack.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very fascinating topic. That was later, though.
Yeah.
So the way I understand what you just said is that within the religious community, whatever you had found to that point died on the vine.
Yeah, nothing.
What about with Jimmy Carter, though, who was the guy who started all this with, hey, let's go to Congress and figure it out?
They sent a report to him. Marcia Smith was very narrow in her interpretation of everything. And what she did was focusing on the Drake equation. I think I mentioned this to you.
Yep.
She kept saying, well, here's the Drake equation. Here's all the different variables. And here are all the ones we don't have answers to, but here's how many stars there are in the galaxy. And, here's what the probabilities are. And she ended up actually preparing a report that said, based upon all the analysis, that it was the judgment of the Science and Technology Division that the kind of evidence and information that we had that indicated that there was, in fact, other life in our galaxy, and that there were probably from 2 to 6 at least, other highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but non-human species in our galaxy. An extraordinarily conservative reading, I might add, but very amazing, because it was actually the Congressional report actually concluded that this was the likelihood.
Gave the thumbs up.
And she said that they were unable to really determine whether any of those civilizations, had developed the kind of technology that would have been able to, go faster than the speed of light. And I remembered I'd interviewed Carl Sagan about this, and Carl kept on saying, well, I'm not denying that that the probabilities are that there's other life there. He said, but of course they can't get here because they can't go faster than the speed of light, so that it doesn't really make that much difference, that we're never going to really be able to have contact with them. That's going to be too far away.
Why was he so certain of that?
Because he was just locked into the Newtonian Cartesian worldview, that the speed of light was an absolute, that as you accelerate a body of matter toward the speed of light, that the mass becomes more and more infinite, and that therefore it would come to a stop, and you couldn't do it. And he was just locked into it, and I kept saying, I don't, I said, you got to try to understand, about the billions of years of other advanced studies that they may have done on this and other star systems. I said, we're knocking on the door of superluminal flight now. And he said, well, I don't think we can really do it. He was like deGrasse Reed or whatever the guy is who is this? Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, who's the horse's ass, who just keeps on saying these really dumb things, Anyway, so that's how he was. That's how Carl was. But later wrote this book with his wife, Contact. All about the stuff. So he's just sort of let it fly before he died, but
something happened.
But we don't know. He never talked to me about it.
I love Carl Sagan. I love watching his old videos.
Sagan was great. I used to watch every one of the Cosmos stories,
When were you interviewing him?
Oh, I think
70s?
probably with John Mack, probably 1994.
Okay, so way later.
Yeah.
So this report with the Drake equation that Marcia drafts up gets put through Congress and Jimmy Carter.
Sent to Carter.
And did Carter ever come back to you guys again asking for more?
Never. I never heard anything more about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I never heard anything more about it because he got knocked out of there in 1980.
Right.
Because he was only there for that one term, and he was really taken up pretty intensely with the hostage thing for the whole last year.
Yeah. There's an urban legend I know you're familiar with that,
someone briefed him in on it and he cried.
which I don't think is real, but it's an interesting allegory, if you will, a symbol of the potential of if you and for people who don't know the story, it goes that Jimmy Carter asked about the aliens. Intelligence came in and briefed him, basically said aliens are real. All the world religions are actually just their own experiment to keep us preoccupied while they watch us down here. And, he was a religious guy, obviously, so it was like saying religion wasn't real. And when they were leaving the room, he was sitting there weeping. Now, again, it's like an urban legend, but it's an interesting story to put a symbol on the ontological shock that could happen if things aren't as we have always accepted them on a mass scale to be.
Well, it would be a projection of somebody's worldview who kind of made it up. Kind of a rumor saying, well, if my worldview were correct, this is what would happen. And so that's the best you can say about that, because I've never had any confirmation of that. I've never talked with President Carter about it.
Well, a guy who comes up in the middle of so many of these conversations, he already has today. He did yesterday when we were talking on the last episode, and the whole family did, is H.W. Bush.
Oh, yeah.
The guy's the head of the CIA, as you said, before he was vice president, and you also put it that he was effectively running that. That's interesting. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.